On today's show, we got some updates for you from Maple Leafs camp, including a possible Klingberg update. It's an interesting situation. So we'll get to that. And we'll also take a look around the league. It's American Thanksgiving. That's a big checkpoint in the year to figure out who's for real and who ain't. So we'll have those discussions as well on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leafs-centered podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. We have new shows coming out each and every weekday, 5 days a week. If you are an everydayer, you know this, but if you're new, please, we would ask that you subscribe to the podcast if you enjoy it. That would be greatly, greatly appreciated. Happy Thanksgiving to our listeners down south. They do it right down there, by the way. I mean, that's one thing that Canada certainly could work on is our Thanksgiving game, because it's like a full week-long event, 4 or 5 days minimum down south. And I for one support it and would love for Canadians to adopt that method.
Yeah, I mean they got the Thursday. Oh yeah, by the way, you're gonna go shopping the next day because we're gonna put down like Boxing
Everything
Day
goes on sale.
Yeah.
Like,
Boxing Day deals on the Black Friday. Oh, and then you also got the weekend.
well, the Wednesday before is known as the biggest bar night in America. Everyone's back in their hometowns and they're all getting together with their old high school buddies and they're all going out. Like, trust me, I worked I worked at a restaurant in Niagara Falls, Ontario. I worked at the Boston Pizza on Clifton Hill. And I remember the Wednesday before American Thanksgiving, all the 19 and 20-year-olds from America that would come over and drink in Canada because it was legal for them at 19 plus. It was always a massively busy weekend in the bar scene in Canada, specifically because you got all the Americans, the underagers there who are under 21, but of age in Canada. So it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They got the weekend coming up. So, and then, Sunday, you kind of start to wind it down a little bit. And then Monday, usually you're out traveling and you don't really get back to work, most of these people, until like Tuesday or maybe Monday. But it's like a 4 or 5 day ordeal. I love it. I support it. And it's fantastic. But it's also a really good marker in the NHL where we take a look at, where teams are on American Thanksgiving. They usually say you need to this point in the NHL to kind of know who your team is. You can start to figure out who's for real and who isn't in the NHL. It's not an exact science, but usually this is when, teams start to separate themselves in the standings a little bit. So we're going to take a look at each team in the NHL. We're going to start at the East, then we'll go into the Western Conference as well. So we'll do that in just a little bit. But let's give an update to the good people about what's going on in Leafland first, because you're listening to Locked On Leafs. That's what they came here for, is the hardcore Leafs talk. And couple of things to update you guys on. Dave, why don't you tell the good people what we saw happen with the practice lines today at the Ford Performance Center?
Well, I'm sure Mike was doing some cartwheels when he saw that Ryan Reeves was not practicing on the fourth line today, and it was Sir Bobby McMahon back. Technically sent down to the Marlies, brought back.
What's the situation here? Because did they get
They
called back
never
up?
announced that they were sending them down in the first place. Like, it was made known by reporters that there was a paper transaction sending them down. I'm kind of thinking that said paper transaction also brought them back up. Like, it was one of those. Yeah, because as you're going to point out, like, they need to be on the roster in order to practice. You can't just bring a guy and.
Well, another reason why we thought maybe they were sent down was to create the space for Conor Timmons, who was practicing today on the third pair. It looks like he might be good to go for Friday. Hopefully that's the case, especially with the, Klingberg's injury still very much up in the air. Do have a slight update on that, though. We'll get to it in just a sec. But that's what I thought. The McMahon and Benoit move was signaling was, okay, we got to send guys down to create this cap space. But if it was just a paper transaction and they're still planning on playing in these games coming up, now I'm a little more confused about what happened there. But that said, if Bobby McMahon is going to be in the lineup on Friday over Ryan Reeves, I don't want to question it. I do not care. These guys are smart. They know how to make the cap work, and I'm sure it all makes sense to Brandon Pridham and company. We've seen them do weird things to accrue cap space throughout the year, so maybe by having them down for a day, they're able to accrue a couple more $1,000 in cap space, which might lead to something late in the season where they, have an extra few $100,000 or something like that by doing these little paper deals throughout the season to make a deal. I don't know. We see this happen all the time with this team. They skirt the rules as much as possible. But so yeah, McMahon, Benoit practicing with the team. Timmons practicing on the third pair. Really like to see that, obviously. Hopefully he can get into the game this weekend for sure. After, a difficult injury that he had, a long-term one in which he had a real solid spring or fall. His training camp in September was phenomenal. Like, this guy was putting up points like he was Cale Makar. Like, we're calling him, Cale Timmons or Conor Timmons, as you were calling him at some point as well. So it'll be good to get him back into the fold and see if he can pick up where he left off.
Yeah, and we don't. This is probably the best opportunity Conor Timmons will have to cement himself a place in this lineup, because last year he was here, but then they made all those trades, and guess what? Conor Timmons was on the outside looking in. Like, the Leafs need offense from this blue line. I know that they need to strengthen the defensive part of it too, but they also need guys to be able to chip in offensively. And really, ever since he's come to Toronto, there's been no better player doing that on this Leafs team than Conor Timmons.
Yeah, he's been great in terms of like points per game. Yeah, he's right up there with Morgan Riley in terms of, being offensive contributors from the back end. The reason why he has an opportunity to play, though, is because, one, the injury to Timothy Liljegren, which there's no update there. He's still out of the lineup for the time being. But this weird, strange absence from John Klingberg, who, again, there was an interesting hit from Darren Dreger earlier today on Overdrive that kind of touched on that situation. Why don't we play the hit and then we could kind of react to it on the other side? So this is Darren Dreger on Overdrive. So I don't know, Dave. To me, it kind of sounded like he was hinting at maybe the Leafs are kind of stringing this along, and maybe there's a possibility that they make him he used the word, not me, but like disappear somehow. And that's kind of another phrase for Robida Island, is it not?
Well, the other part too is Dreger also said, like, when Klingberg sat out that one game and then came back, he said like a lot of people were surprised, even some people on the Leafs themselves, which he means up top.
So that was like a 2.5-minute clip. The initial little bit of that clip, there was a bit of information that I think is new. You let me know. I didn't hear about this. Maybe some have, but to me, this is new information. He's pinpointing this original injury back in a game against Florida at the beginning of the season, like a month ago. Over a month ago at this point is when the initial injury, to his knowledge, happened, and he'd been playing through it and it was lingering. And then, he missed that game against Calgary, but then played the last night in that back-to-back before going to Sweden against Vancouver. And obviously, maybe he re-aggravated whatever injury there was there. And then when he went to Sweden, they said that, the flight didn't do it any good. And when you flow there, he had to fly back, right? So maybe he stayed home in Sweden. Perhaps it's possible if he's going on Robida Island. Well, maybe he'll want to stay in Sweden and not have to take that flight back. But I believe he came back with the team. But regardless, this is all kind of new information here about the injury first being sustained apparently back on October 18th against Florida, and it's been persistent and to this point where it still is nagging him. And I don't know if this is a narrative that they're trying to get out there, and that's kind of they're playing a long game here where they're like, oh, it's been a while, he needs to repair something, he needs time off. We're gonna put him on LTIR and make that contract disappear. So that's kind of what Dregs was hinting at.
Yeah, I mean the information about him suffering this injury in that Florida game is that's new because I hadn't heard it, and it gives us anyone that wants to go and do some investigative work to see what exactly did he do in that Florida game to get hurt in the first place.
Yeah,
so that's a possibility too. But yeah, that it's nagging for this long, and you know what? Like, players can play when they're injured. We've seen it many times. So like, for us to say, he played a game. Well, there's players who do that. There's players who'd say, you know what, nah, I'm good. It's not really bothering me. I can play. And that's a player who obviously wants to get in the lineup. They'll say or do whatever they can to get in the lineup. Unfortunately, that sometimes that does more harm than good for a player that's dealing with an injury.
Yeah. Yes, this is very true. So that was back on Thursday, October 19th is the game. Apparently played 18 minutes and 50 seconds, which, I mean, if you look at the 3 games prior to that, he was above 20 minutes, 24, 21, 22 minutes at 3 games prior. This is the 4th game of the season that he supposedly suffered an injury. And then the next 3 games, he was under 20 minutes again. 1850, 1741, 1852. And then the injuries started to pile up on this blue line, and they had to play him a lot. And then you saw the numbers creep back up 23 minutes, 20 minutes, played 25 minutes in that loss to Buffalo when he was atrocious on the ice for 4 goals against in that game. And then you saw the numbers dip below again, and then he missed the game, and we know what happened to Vancouver. So, I mean, I guess if you're looking at ice time, perhaps this does kind of tell the story, perhaps. But it look, Drags wouldn't come out with this information if he didn't believe it to be true, and if he didn't believe that, this was leaning towards an LTIR situation, whether that's literally Robidas Island where we don't see him again for the year, or it's just a very long-term thing. I do not know, obviously. But it doesn't sound as though John Klingberg is going to be returning to the Leafs anytime soon.
No. And hopefully then we get a little more, because the Leafs have to figure out if he's out for long term, how long, and what they do with, his spot in the lineup going forward.
Yeah, and that was another thing too that was mentioned by Dregs. Like, if a trade were to have been imminent, there was a rumor that apparently Toronto and Calgary were just waiting for the Leafs to get back before pulling the trigger on the Zadorov and Tanev trade. If something were more imminent, he believes Klingberg would have already been placed on LTIR. But perhaps the fact that he hasn't been yet maybe suggests that there's not as imminent as a trade as some people suggested there may be between the Leafs and Flames or any blue liner. By the way, tomorrow for Friday's show, for Black Friday, I think we should do a segment, going, shopping for Black Friday. Let's go shop for some defensemen. We'll look at some of the blue liners in the NHL that the Maple Leafs maybe could go and inquire on and try and get a good deal on Black Friday. But so that's a little nugget for tomorrow's show. So make sure you're subscribed so that you know when that show comes out for sure. All right, let's take a break, Dave, and we'll come back and let's get into our league roundup. Like we said, American Thanksgiving, it's a good time to kind of take a peek around the NHL and see what everyone's up to. So we'll start with the Eastern Conference, and then we'll do the West, the teams out West. So we'll do all that when we return. But first, a word from our show sponsors. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. We're hosts here at Locked On Leafs. We're a daily Maple Leaf-centered podcast. It's your team every day, and we do cover the Maple Leafs each and every day, Monday through Friday. So if you enjoyed the show, hopefully you can leave a like on the video, leave a comment if you would down below as well, subscribe also. And if you're listening on iTunes, leave a review, a little 5 stars and a review would be nice as well. All of that helps with the algorithm and helps the show grow. And with that, let's get to our league-wide roundup at the American Thanksgiving point. Like we've mentioned prior, this is about the time where you can start to understand what teams are. Teams start to separate themselves in contenders and pretenders, and we're going to basically just go up and down the roster or go up and down the standings chart if you want to pull it up, Dave. And we'll just give a quick little talk about each team and if we think that they are contenders or pretenders at this point in the season. So we're not going to talk about Toronto because we talk about Toronto all the time. I think we can basically just say we believe this team is a contender. They've won 4 straight. They got a lot of really good teams, and they always play well in the regular season, so they'll be fine. So we do believe that Toronto will be among the contenders by the end of the year. But why don't we start off with the Boston Bruins here, who are right up at the tip top of the Eastern table, 14-1-3 with 31 points. They still have yet to lose a game in regulation on home ice, a plus 25 goal differential for the Bruins in just 18 games. That is insane. Where are you at with Boston? You think they're for real? Are they as good as they were a year ago?
I'm just annoyed, man. Like this team, they're given every reason to take a step back, and they refuse to. I think what's really done it for them is that their defense, they're able to keep the puck out of that. That they have that 1-2 punch in net that continues to work, and they still can score, right? I mean, they're not top of the league in scoring, but they're in a good range, right? They got 63 goals. I think the Leafs are at 62. Yes, the Bruins have played one more game than the Leafs, but that 38 goals against, that goal differential, that's what it is. They play responsibly defensively while still putting pucks in the net. You hate to say it, but it's something to admire.
They're for real, man. It's for real, and it's a culture. Yeah, they lost Patrice Bergeron, the best defensive forward in the game. They lost David Krejci, who was a top 6 player for them. Charlie McAvoy was suspended for 4 games throughout this season, including a game against Toronto. What'd they do? Oh, they just went on to win all those games. No biggie, no big deal, right? McAvoy goes down. He's a top 5 defenseman in the league, maybe. And what do? They just next man up, keep it rolling, keep it moving. It's exactly what they've done. I'm done doubting Boston. I'm just done doing it. Like last year, I was like, I don't think so. They got all those injuries. Might be the year they take a step back. They only went on to be the best team literally in all of hockey when it comes to in the entire history of hockey in terms of regular season success. And I mean, they're on par for a just as good a season, it seems like, to this point.
The only thing we can say is it didn't lead to playoff success, so we're happy about that.
We are happy about that. The New York Rangers, 13-3-1, 27 points through 17 games. I believe they just had a 1-0 shutout tonight. Jonathan Quick with the shutout as well, which is super impressive. He's been unbelievable so far for the Rangers.
I like that move as soon as they made it too. Like him as a backup. He's from there too, so
but he was with Vegas last year and he didn't even play. Like he was their 3rd string goalie in the playoffs. Yeah. They didn't even give him a chance.
That was just for insurance because they had Aiden Hill, Logan Thompson was still dealing with the injury, and I think who's Laurent Brossoit was also with them too. So they needed that insurance. They didn't want goaltending to be the reason why they lost. But yeah, this Rangers team,
they're for real, man.
You know what? The biggest, and I edited an article for Sportsnet that Ryan Dixon wrote, and the biggest plus for them, what's that?
Laffy?
Alexis Lafreniere.
Yep, scored the game winner tonight too.
He's got, this is obviously not updated from tonight's game, but going to this game, 11 points in 16 games. Yeah, I understand he's a first overall pick and you expect more from him, but they were talking about trading this dude and cutting their losses.
Yeah, he scored his 8th goal tonight. 8 goals through 17 games. So, I mean, that's 30, 35 goal pace he's on right now. Yeah, that's a big development for the New York Rangers. And look, they've always had a top-tier defense, right? Like you've got Adam Fox, one of the top defensemen in the league. You've got Igor Shesterkin in net. Now you've got a second guy in goal and Jonathan Quick. You've got Panarin. You've got Zibanejad. Chris Kreider was up there. Now you got Laffy playing the way that he's playing. They've got Blake Wheeler in the fold as well as
Eric
a veteran out there.
Has 12 points in 16 games.
Yep. There's also that. There is also that. And a lot of people will tell you that Eric Gustafsson should have been brought back to Toronto over John Klingberg.
On top of that, it's not like he's playing shelter. He's playing 19 minutes a night.
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. But yeah, Rangers, they're for real. That team's for real. I mean, we knew that going into the year. But at this point, 13-3-1, a 794 save percentage or win points percentage. Yeah, they're for real. They are definitely cup contenders. We're out with the Florida Panthers, Dave.
This is a weird team. They have in this they've kind of got the Bruins like where I thought they were gonna be struggling because no Ekblad, no Montour, Sam Bennett was also hurt, but then Sam Reinhart's like, oh yeah, I need a new contract. I need to play really well, and so he's leading he's near the league leading points. He has 25 points in 19 games.
Unreal.
13 goals. So he's helped them in a big way because like Matthew Tkachuk has not like he's got 17 points in 19 games. He's that's the biggest surprise to me for the Panthers. They're doing so well, even though Matthew Tkachuk isn't playing at his best.
Yeah, I mean they're getting some decent goaltending, but ultimately, yeah, the big thing here for Florida is they're getting otherworldly stuff out of Sammy Reinhart, and it's not just offensively; it's on both ends of the ice. Yeah, like you said, 25 points. Guy's got 13 goals. 13 goals. Like he's up in the stratosphere of Austin Matthews right now. Like it's unbelievable. Now I believe he has a 25% shooting percentage. So that's going to come down for sure.
Yeah. And Matthew Tkachuk's not going to be shooting at 3.7% either.
No. So but those law of averages should average out, and maybe they'll continue with the same success. I also saw today on NHL Network that I want to say it was Kevin Weeks saying he believes that the Panthers are the current front runners for Patrick Kane, and that decision could be coming by the end of the weekend.
It makes so much sense too. That's what hurts.
Yeah.
Like for Patrick Kane, you get to play in Florida and you get to play with Tkachuk, who I'm sure he would like to play with and play
fellow
with
American superstar.
Yeah. So, that would make so much sense that it hurts.
Yeah. Showtime. Absolutely. It would. And I mean, and Bob's playing well, but they did all this without Ekblad and okay, but they did this all without Ekblad and Montour. Now you're giving them their top two defensemen back and maybe adding Patrick Kane. I mean, yeah, this is a team that's going to be dangerous the rest of the year. They're for real.
Yeah, and even like they found ways to augment that, like Ekman-Larsson. Yeah, he's not amazing, but hey, he's kind of had he's rebounding right now. He's averaging 23 minutes a night. He's kind of in their workhorse. 11 points in 19 games. Yeah, defensively, there's still issues there, but he's now going to get favorable. Now that Montour's back and that Ekblad's going to be back soon, it's going to help Larson that he doesn't have to have all that pressure put on him. So I think he helped them in a big way to stay afloat with those two guys out.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, really quickly, let's just run down kind of the rest of these teams here, Dave. In the Eastern Conference, the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, they're 23 points through 20 games. They're above 500. I think that this group 9-6-5 right now. I mean, the Lightning right now. Well, I mean, yeah, like they're above 500 without Vasilevsky. You get Vasi back in net, who's expected to come back in the next couple of weeks. I believe I saw he's practicing. They'll be perfectly fine. They got 70 goals this year. I think that might lead the league, or maybe second in the league.
Yeah, he's
second to Vancouver, I think. You give them all-world goaltending again with Vasi. Yeah, the Tampa Bay Lightning, they're not going anywhere. They're for real. Capitals. You believe in this Capitals team? They've won like 5 in a row.
Here's the thing. We've seen the bad Washington Capitals. We're starting to see the good Washington Capitals. I think they're an average team. Like right now, how they're playing, like they're like kind of, they went on this 5-game winning streak. That helps kind of even out things after how bad things started. But I think eventually things are going to start going downhill again for them. I just don't have faith that they're an old team. They don't really have a lot of young guys. It's going to be hard for them to sustain what they've been doing the last few weeks.
And they've been doing it without Ovi scoring, which is kind of weird. Like you would think if the Caps are, a top 10 team in the league right now, in which they are, that Ovi would be doing some damage, but he really isn't. Like, he's been off to a slow start, just 5 goals through 15 games. Like, that's not great. That's not
They've been better
Ovechkin.
defensively. That's probably been what's helped them a lot. But
Well, they got a healthy John Carlson. How much you think that's helping them?
huge. But I
Yeah.
think, like until Ovi starts scoring, that's gonna be their big issue. They're not gonna have enough offense to sustain this, I think.
Yeah, I think they're frauds, by the way. I think that's a team that's a
Yeah,
pretender.
I
They're
think
going to
they're
come back to earth. I was looking at the expected numbers too. They're like 26th in expected goal differential. For a team that currently is like at an even 0, just 43 goals for, 43 goals against. Their expected goal differential is like 46%. So I think that they're gonna take a tumble.
They'll equal out a little bit.
Yeah, Charlie Lindgren is not going to be the savior of their season like he has been in the last few games here. Carolina Hurricanes, they just dummied the Edmonton Oilers. Tough scene over there in Edmonton. But Carolina starting to pick it back up after a bit of a slow start.
Yeah, my issue with them, goaltending. Frederick Anderson, he's got a blood clotting issue right now. Yeah. So he's going to be out long term. Antti Ranta got hurt tonight. I think it was tonight, or he got hurt in there. So that's a team that brought in Yarrow Halak on a PTO just to have another goaltender around.
Well, they released him too. Like, he's not even there anymore.
Yeah, I think they had to release him. Like, I think they probably felt okay with what they had, but with Ranta hurt now, I don't know if that team. There might be a team that either looks for a goaltender or has to hope for their goaltending to be healthy again. Ranta's had injury issues in the past, so like this is something that they're gonna have to sort out.
Chekhov's pretty good young goalie though. I think
he struggled a little bit this year, but he'll
be okay.
He can get back if just give him some confidence.
Yeah, I think they'll be okay. Like, opposite of Washington, they're a team that's like top 5 in expected goal differential. So law of averages says they'll start to pick it back up. Why don't we take a quick break? We'll come back and we'll finish up the Eastern Conference. Maybe we can do the West tomorrow because I don't think we're gonna have enough time to fit both of them in. We just got so much stuff to say about these teams in the East. We're a little giddy about it. So we'll take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll finish off the bottom feeders in the Eastern Conference. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. Leafs still with an off day. Don't play until Friday. They get the Black Friday game as they'll be taking on the Chicago Blackhawks. It's a 2 p.m. start for the Maple Leafs. And we got staggered starts on Friday. So it's like a full Black Friday of hockey, which is going to be awesome. For those who are going to be in Turkey Coma in the States, they can sit back and relax, watch some hockey. There's going to be a 3 p.m. football game as well. Should be a lot of good stuff after you do your morning shopping. An afternoon of hockey and football and sports. You chill out at night. It's going to be a tremendous Friday for all of the American listeners of the pod. So we're going to continue through with our Eastern Conference roundup. We finished off at the Detroit Red Wings, who sit right in the middle of the conference. They're 8th in the conference right now, above 500 with a 9-6-3 record through 18 games. They are a +8 goal differential, but this is a team that's really started to slow down. They got off to a wicked hot start at the beginning of the year. Now about 500 in their last 10 games. I think they've lost like 6 of their last 7 or something like that, or 4 of the last 5. I think it may be. What's going on with Detroit? Are they a team that's for real, or is this a pretender here?
I think the issue is they got off to such a hot start because the Brinket and Larkin were just crushing teams.
Yeah,
right?
Like 40% shooting.
Right. Like a lot was going right for Detroit, right? James Reimer was playing excellent. He's leveled off a bit. Ville Husso, that continues to be yikes for them, like with that contract that they signed him to.
So they had lost 4 of their last 5 games, but then they actually beat the Devils. We're recording this at like 11 o'clock Wednesday night. They beat the Devils tonight 4-0. But
yeah, the Devils have been struggling. We'll get to them in a minute.
We will.
Alex Lyon is now going to be dubbed the savior again for another team because
The Lion King in Detroit.
it's like you have a problem. You need a third goalie to come in and sort it out. Call our guy Alex Line. That's
Did he get
really
the
what you
shutout
do.
tonight?
Did he get a shutout tonight?
No way. It was probably Jimmy Reimer. It was Alex Lyon. Wow, Alex Lyon did get the shutout tonight for the Detroit Red Wings. Stopped 16 of 16 shots for the shutout.
I don't know
Lion
who brought this up, but with the Oilers struggles, some people were bringing up James Reimer as a potential option for them to go and look at.
Wouldn't hate it.
If I'm a team, I'm calling Detroit about Alex Lyon right now. Like the Leafs play, I think when the Leafs played him, it was Alex Lyon in net. Like he's yeah, I go with him as my 1A starter. No, but this is a guy that if you need starts, you need quality starts from, he can step in and provide them. Although the Devils were pretty brutal tonight, so I couldn't give it all to Alex Lyon. I think they only had like 16 shots on net.
Yeah, wasn't
but
great.
Like Reimer, like that's the thing for them. Their goaltending isn't really there, and I think their blue line is still average. That's a blue line that I think is like, other than Sider, who do you look at on this blue line and say, yeah, that's a maybe Wallman. Other than that,
it's an aging blue line. It's old. Yeah. Like they got Jeff Petrie, they've got Ben Sherratt. I mean, Justin Holl is on there.
The big hole
on that blue line. Yeah. So yeah, but I think the biggest issue here is like they gave them this fan base false hope because they started out the year 5-1 to start the year, and you saw an absolute shooting machine in Alex DeBrincat, who had 9 goals in those first 6 games of the year. Since then, though, just 2 games in his last 11, just 2 goals his last 11 games. Go figure that the team is not winning games since that little mini slide has started for Alex DeBrincat.
Yeah, I think something were to say that there was going to be a downhill coming there for sure.
Yeah. I think I wrote about it in the Hockey News when I wrote about his young guns when he was rated like first star the opening week or something like that. I was like, I would sell that card now because I think he's going to fall off a cliff again. Anyways, let's move on to the Philadelphia Flyers, who to this point might be one of the biggest surprisers, I guess you could say, of the conference right now. Coming into tonight, I suppose they actually, up until Washington and Carolina won their games today. But when I was looking at the standings earlier, Philadelphia was second in the Metro. Granted, again, there's a bunch of teams that are right in and around the same thing, but it was pretty jarring to see Philadelphia as the second ranked team in the division this morning when I looked at the standings.
Yeah, I actually just made a trade to acquire Carter Hart because I needed another goaltender in one of my fantasy leagues.
Okay.
Didn't pay much for him, but he hasn't been too bad. He was out with an injury for a little bit, but a lot being said about his future and what was going to happen to him, and he's delivered 6-3-1, just under 920 save percentage. Like that's what you need out of Carter Hart.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's funny because it's not one player doing it for this team. It's like it's a group effort, right? Travis Sanheim leads this team in points with 16
really
points.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Did you see that one trade proposal from who was it? Corwin McCallum from Bar Down. His trade proposal to bring Travis Sanheim to Toronto.
Oh, I think I did, and I wanted to throw up.
It was quite aggressive. Like, I mean, Corwin's kind of a buddy of mine. Know the guy pretty well from working at TSN. I had him on Leafs Lunch a couple of times. I've chatted with him in the hallway, but yeah, that was a tough take. It was like Matthew Nyes, John Klingberg, a first, a second, and I think maybe even Robertson might have been included in that deal, or Abruzzi. Somebody was included in that deal for Travis Sanheim, and it was like, what? You want to throw Nyes first and second round picks? Like, okay, I get it. You want to move on from Klingberg's deal, but that's aggressive. But anyways, totally off topic. Just
I'll
something
say this: another story from the Flyers here. I think the biggest story it's been is Morgan Frost has been in the doghouse. Only
I thought
played
you were gonna say
healthy scratch 10 games this year. This is a guy who was like, I thought was going to be a great prospect for them, and
first round pick, wasn't he?
he was like late first round pick for him. And I don't know what they're doing with him. Like, this is a guy who had 46 points last year. I guess maybe this is a tough love approach, which sounds like the Flyers in a lot of ways. But yeah, that's the situation I would keep an eye on, because he's not asking for a trade out, but rumblings are saying that this is not something he wants to be a part of long term, if he's going to be in the doghouse for not really great reasons.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. But, young 20 or 20-ish, 20, what's he, maybe 23, 24, maybe. Year old forward, former first rounder. Someone will take the chance on him.
Yeah.
Lou and the New York Islanders, 7-6-5, 19 points through 18 games, a -11 goal differential. They have not gotten stellar goaltending from Ilya Sorokin, which is honestly a little concerning if you're the Islanders, because he's your backbone of the team. If he ain't stopping pucks, this team's not going to win many games.
They're not scoring. That's the big issue.
Anders Lee has like 1 goal this year, if that.
That's a team that, you go out and you make the deal for Bo Horvat, but Bo Horvat can't be counted on to be an elite offensive player. That's just not. He's the two-way guy. Like, he is their Patrice Bergeron. They need someone to provide offense. Barzal hasn't really been doing it. Like, that's the big issue for them. They need to find the offense.
Yeah, that's always been kind of their problem. Pierre Engvall signed that big deal, right? 8 had to get him in there. 7 years, had to sign him 7 years. Well, he's got you 1 goal through 16 games. I don't know how.
You still upset that the Leafs don't have him, Mike? You still upset about that one?
I mean, if it was gonna listen at $3 million times 7, no, I'm not upset. But as a fourth line, like if Pierre Engvall at Ryan Reeves money, love it. Love it. At what he's making now, no chance. Anders Lee, 2 goals through 17 games. That's tough. That's tough. Their leading goal scorer, Brock Nelson, has 8. Yeah, they got 5 from Horvat. Noah Dobson's second on the team with 5 goals as a blue liner. Like, that's how kind of porous it's been. He leads the team, 15 points, leads the team. Noah Dobson's a good defenseman, by the way. I will say that. All right, so what do you think? Do you think that team is like contenders? Like, they seem to always be in the mix at the end of the year, but is this the year that they don't make it?
I think it is. I think they haven't been able to get that good scoring player. Like, they lack the scoring unless they go out and find a way to bring some offense in. I don't see it happening.
We'll see where they sit in terms of expected goal differential in the NHL. I don't think it's high. The one thing I'll say about the Flyers, their expected goal differential, they're top 10 in the NHL. They sit 9th in expected goals. So that's actually a positive for them. The Islanders, 21st in the league. So right around where they rank in terms of points. That's about where they're at in terms of expected goal differential. So yeah, we'll see what happens with the Islanders, but I don't have high hopes. Pittsburgh Penguins. So weird, because the Penguins, it's like they either blow out teams or they get blown out. That seems to be the only 2 options with the Penguins this season. And
like, you're getting a really good year from Sidney Crosby. Jake Gensel, another guy who needs a new contract, is just like, I'm a be paid. So he's doing well right now. Goaltending. I guess giving Tristan Jarry that money wasn't the best of ideas for this Pittsburgh Penguin. His numbers aren't.
Is this like a straight direct jab at our good pal Kyle Dubas, or what?
It's almost like, he wasn't always perfect with all the moves he made, especially in net. But like,
he hasn't been terrible though. He hasn't been bad though. Like 9-10 save percentage.
Bad, but the record's not there. Like, he's 6-8. He has a losing record right now.
Yeah, but again, I think it's more so him not getting a whole lot of run support. Although I will say this, I'm pretty sure. So Tristan Jarry, he either has a really, really good game or a really, really bad game. Like,
Yeah.
that's kind
You don't know
of
what you got.
yeah, you
There's no
don't know what
middle
you're
line.
gonna get. Yeah, like, he'll either so, let me take a look at his game logs because I'm pretty sure I was looking at them earlier this season, and it was like, okay, he either is going to have a shutout or he's going to allow 5 goals. It was pretty much that's what it was. Like, yeah, so he's either allowed 3+ goals in every game except for so he has 4 shutouts this year, 4 shutouts, right? But he's allowed 3+ goals in every other game but one.
Exactly,
That's
right? You get it.
that's been his season.
Yeah. I will say
Crazy.
Eric Carlson's at least worked out pretty well for them. 17
Wow.
points, 18 games, over 24 minutes.
We knew they were gonna score
Yeah.
points, though. It was how's it gonna work defensively? That was always going to
Yeah.
be the concern there when it came to Carlson. But
Seems to be doing all right in that regard.
playoff
Like
team, playoff team.
if they can, I think they can make the playoffs as at least a wild card team. I think with the way the Metro is, like we really think Philly and New York, like those are the two teams they're battling right now. I think.
Uh, well, as of right
And Washington.
now, I'm looking at the Metro, and they are not in a playoff spot.
No.
The Rangers, the Capitals, and the Hurricanes are there, and the Flyers, the Islanders are above them. They're fifth in the wild card. Fifth in the wild card, man.
I
Interesting.
think they'll get there. It's gonna take some time, but I do think with this Penguins team, like Washington's gonna, as we said, Washington's gonna drop off a bit. I think Philly too. It's the Islanders really. If the Islanders make a move, maybe, but I don't see it.
Well, you think the Devils, who I guess are a team that we'll get to
Yeah,
here,
that's true too. But I
like
think that's why I have them as a wild card team. I don't have them in the division because I think the Devils will get back into it. Hopefully.
yeah, the Devils, you look at it, goaltending's been the big issue there, right? 66 goals against so far through 17 games. They're 500 hockey team at 8-1 through 17 games. Lost 4-0 to Detroit last night. Tough loss there. But they also have had their fair share of injuries. Jack Hughes was out for a couple of weeks there. He's back now, but still clearly not 100%. Nico Hischier has been out for a couple of weeks, and he's not there. Like that's their bread and butter, right? That 1-2 punch down the middle is how they're able to, go wave after wave after wave of offense. When you've got guys having to play up the lineup a little bit and you're missing those two, they're going to struggle. And you're not getting a whole lot out of Timo Meier either, which has been a bit of a surprise this season too. So the Devils,
I think he's been benched a few times too, like in games because
it's been weird for him. Dawson Mercer too, after a breakout season last year. I think he's only got like 3 goals so far this season, so he's having kind of a slump. Not a sophomore, whatever you would call a third-year slump, tertiary slump. I don't know, but like all of those things kind of going against them. I would imagine this is probably the one team that I look at who's on the outside looking into a playoff spot. And I think this is the biggest, falsehood there is. The Devils are a much better hockey club than 500. The Devils will certainly be in the mix for not only a playoff spot, but in Stanley Cup contention when all said and done.
Yeah, I do. I think so. Like that's a team that's so good, so tough to play against.
Power rank the Sabres, Sens, and Canadians for me right now.
I would say in that Sabres, Senators, and Canadians. Actually, I put Senators over the Sabres. Senators, Sabres, Canadians, I would say.
Yeah, I think I'd go the exact same route. Like Buffalo, the big thing with Buffalo is just the goaltending, man. They also are not getting good goaltending. They've allowed 61 goals through 19 games, a dash 7 in goal differential. They're 8-9-2, a 474 win percentage, which is below the Devils, below the Ottawa Senators as well. But it's just, they're not getting the goaltending, and then Tage Thompson out for another month at least. That's a big loss,
and he
man.
wasn't really hitting. He wasn't really like scoring at the pace he was last year either.
Well, that's why this team was 500 when he got hurt, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now you really take him away. It's probably going to remain a 500 club in his absence.
Although I will say Zach Benson, I don't know if you saw his first NHL goal tonight.
Woo! Was that ever a beauty? Oh,
The
between the
only time
legs.
I'll ever clap for the Sabres was for that goal he scored.
Yeah. You guys got to go find that little between the legs. How do you do over the shoulder, the goaltender, bar down, everything you could possibly want in as your first NHL goal. Oh, it was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stuff. The Sens off to a bit of a tough start, but they're starting to win some games here, as we typically see of the Sens once they get through that first 6-week fog, which seems to happen literally every single year. But they won 3 in a row. They had a perfect record when they were out in Sweden. So I was looking too, or I was chatting with our buddy Ross from Locked On Sens when we did the national show today. The Sens have the weirdest schedule. So like they also went out to Sweden along with Toronto. Obviously, they didn't play each other, which I thought was bizarre. But so they were in a situation where they didn't play that whole week leading up to the game, which similarly to Toronto. Then they played 2 games when they were there, and then they're not going to play again for basically the whole week as they return. Then they have a back-to-back this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and then they're off again until the following Friday. They have 4 games in a 19-game span, and Ross is telling me by December 1st, the Ottawa Senators will have played 7 less games than the Tampa Bay Lightning. That schedule is bizarre.
It's weird. I don't understand how the NHL thinks that's a good thing for teams, because then they're gonna have to find a way to make up these games. And like it's good for Ottawa in some regard because they gotta work through some injuries and things like that, or just bad play in general too. But they were banged up to start the year. So not the worst thing to get some rest for these guys, but at the same time, that also means later in the year they're going to have a lot of games stuffed down their throats.
That's right. That's right. So we'll see what ends up happening there. The Montreal Canadiens sitting 15th in the Eastern Conference right now. 7-9. What's that?
Expected.
As expected. Yeah. 7-9-2, a 444 points percentage, minus 14 goal differential. And it's not going well for the Montreal Canadiens, who have lost 4 in a row as well, 2-7-1 in their last 10 games.
They are currently winning the game in Anaheim as we're talking right now, but not saying
they are who we thought they were, though. Like let's be honest. No one expected the Montreal Canadiens to be a good team. Like these are not contenders.
No, they're not. No, not at all. Although they did get their first win against Boston, like God knows how many years. They did end that curse.
I think actually Slafkovsky's finally starting.
He's starting to play better. Like that. He's not playing at a first overall pick level yet, but he's getting better in terms of he's finding his confidence, and that's that right now. Don't care about the wins, Montreal. Care about getting these guys playing confidently. Him, Caden Gooley, they need that.
They need goals from Cole Caulfield, man. Like that guy was, being touted as like one of the best goal scorers in the league. He's got only 5 goals through 18 games so far. Not the best. Not the best. But again, somewhat expected from a lowly Montreal team. And that brings us to the Babcockless Columbus Blue Jackets, who have, I believe, a league high 20 games played already. 5-11-4, 14 points on the season, a minus 15 goal differential. And that's including, Dave, the 7-3 shellacking they just put on the Chicago Blackhawks today. So those numbers were even worse when you woke up this morning than when you will go to bed. But yeah, Columbus, I thought they were going to be better. I'll be honest. I'm pretty sure on this show, I know I said on the national show that I felt Columbus might be in the mix for a wild card spot, but obviously not the case. They're getting no goaltending from Merzlikins, and they're not getting anything from their backups either. Minus 15 goal differential. You got like 1 goal going into tonight from Patrick Laine, who got healthy scratched the other day. You're getting nothing out of Goudreau. I think I saw that this is the first time in Goudreau's career that he went his first 18 or 19 games of the season without double-digit points. So you're getting nothing from him. The whole team is just, it's been a mess from start to finish, right from before training camp with the Babcock stuff, all the way through till healthy scratching line, and him coming out talking about how embarrassed he was and how he felt that wasn't necessarily the way to go. It's a mess in Columbus, man, an absolute mess. Not contenders. Let me say that. I was wrong, not contenders.
I'm going to say this is likely going to be the season where you start to see, considering what happened in the offseason, I think you're going to see some changes there in management. I think Davidson and Kirkalainen, I think if something doesn't change soon, those guys are going to be given their walking papers.
Yeah, I mean, Kekalainen has been around for a long time there, a long time. And look, he brought them to they won their first two playoff rounds, I believe, under Kekalainen. So like he's got a little bit of a buffer there, but I mean, outside of Boone Jenner, who's got 8 goals, you're not getting anything from anyone. Again, Jack Roslovic has 2 goals this year. You got 2 goals from Johnny Gaudreau. Cole Sillinger still looking for his first goal of the season. Kent Johnson's has played in less than half the games, and he only had a goal in those 8 games that he had played. It's just not going well for this group at all. Even Kirill Marchenko, who had a pretty solid rookie season last year, just 9 points so far. Fantilli, just 9 points so far. They're not getting much of anything from anybody. And then obviously the goaltending, both sub 900 goaltending with goals against averages of over 3.3. So yeah, it's not been good all around for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Not contenders. All right. We'll do the West tomorrow. I think 50 minutes is enough talking for us. We could do the West on tomorrow's show as we continue with the kind of Thanksgiving Day mark roundup type of thing. But that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcast platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. Go ahead, smash that like button if you're watching here on YouTube. Leave a comment down below as well. And we'll be back for another episode for you guys tomorrow. Once again, happy holidays to those down south. Enjoy your turkey and Thanksgiving. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.